All right, today we're going to crack open the owner's manual for the most complicated, most fascinating machine on Earth, your mind. We're talking all about psychology. Really think about it. Why do you put off that big project until the last minute? Why are you drawn to certain people? How can a single song just instantly transport you back in time? These are exactly the kinds of questions that get to the very heart of psychology. For most of human history, the mind was this complete enigma, something for philosophers and poets to wonder about. It was like this vast, unmapped territory. But then, a new breed of explorer came along, not with ships and compasses, but with the tools of science, determined to chart our inner world. So let's get down to brass tacks. What exactly is this science of the mind? Let's start with the basics. Okay, the most important word there is scientific. See, psychology isn't just about having cool ideas. It's about actually testing them to see if they hold up. And it covers everything, the whole shebang, from the conscious choices you make every single day to all those hidden, unconscious drivers humming away beneath the surface. Now, the big questions have been around forever. We're talking way back in ancient Greece with folks like Plato and Aristotle. But the real game changer came much, much later. While Christian Wolff gave the field its name in the 1700s, it was Wilhelm Wundt in 1879 who really got the ball rolling. He's the guy who took psychology out of the lecture hall and into the lab, making it a true experimental science. And once those lab doors swung open, man, the field just exploded. It wasn't one neat little story. It was more like a battle royale of big, competing ideas, all trying to explain what makes us tick. Imagine the mind is a locked room. All of these early thinkers were like master locksmiths, and each one of them showed up with a totally different key they were convinced was the only one that would work. It sparked some of the most intense debates in the history of science. And you had some wildly different keys. In one corner, there's Sigmund Freud. His whole thing was that what we see on the surface is just the tip of the iceberg. The real action, he said, is buried deep in our unconscious mind. But then, in the other corner, you had the behaviorists, like B.F. Skinner. They basically said, whoa, hold on. If you can't see it and you can't measure it, it doesn't count. Let's just focus on what people actually do. The behaviorists were so influential that for a while, the mind itself was treated like a black box, something totally unknowable and off-limits to science. But then, the cognitive revolution kicked in. As computers started to become a thing, a new wave of psychologists thought, hey, what if the mind works kind of like an information processor? They argued that we absolutely can study things like memory and attention scientifically. And just like that, the black box was cracked wide open. This was a massive game changer. It brought the mind back to the center stage and gave us new ways to study thought itself, really setting the foundation for psychology as we know it today. Okay, so we've got all these big theories, but how do we get from a cool idea to a reliable fact? Well, that's all about the methods psychologists use to study us. The secret sauce is the scientific method. This is what separates real psychology from all the pop psychology cliches and guesswork you see out there. It's all about that rigorous, evidence-based approach. The gold standard here is the controlled experiment. It's a pretty simple idea, but it's powerful. You start with a prediction, you set up different groups, you change just one little thing for one group, and then you measure what happens. It's the best way to figure out cause and effect. And some of these experiments have become absolutely legendary, or infamous. Back in the 60s, Stanley Milgram wanted to see how far ordinary people would go when an authority figure told them to do something. The results on human obedience were, well, they were deeply unsettling, and we never would have known about it without this kind of research. And today, wow, we can go so much deeper. We've gone from just watching what people do to actually watching the brain do its thing in real time. With tools like fMRI, scientists can literally see which parts of your brain light up when you feel an emotion or solve a puzzle. It's like we're finally connecting the software of our minds to the hardware of our brains. Okay, so lab studies and brain scans are cool and all, but so what? Why does any of this matter to you? Well, the real power of psychology is how it shows up in the real world. Just think about it for a second. In mental health, we have treatments like cognitive behavioral therapy that have literally changed millions of lives for the better. In the workplace, psychology helps make jobs more engaging and productive. And it can even change society on a huge scale. The famous doll tests, for example, provided crucial evidence that helped end school segregation in the United States. That's a massive impact. So, the takeaway here is that this stuff isn't just an academic game. At its absolute best, psychology is a powerful tool for understanding who we are and for making life better for everyone. But, and this is super important, no science is perfect. Psychology is actually wrestling with some massive challenges right now. And believe it or not, that's actually a sign of a healthy, growing field. You know, any science worth its salt is constantly questioning itself, always trying to do better. That self-correction is exactly what makes it trustworthy in the long run. One of the biggest shakeups has been the replication crisis. What happened was, other scientists tried to repeat a bunch of famous studies, and they couldn't get the same results. For some well-known findings, as many as 2/3 failed to replicate. It was a major wake-up call. And here's another huge one, the weird problem. Get this, a staggering 96% of subjects in psychology studies come from countries that are Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic. But that group only makes up about 12% of the world's population. So it raises a pretty big question. Are we studying human psychology or the psychology of a very small, specific slice of humanity? But here's the optimistic part. These crises are forcing the science to get better. They're pushing researchers to be more careful, to include people from all walks of life, and ultimately, to build a much more honest and reliable science of the mind. So this journey to map the mind has come an incredible distance. But let's be real, the map is far from finished. There are still huge blank spots, big questions about consciousness, about who we are. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What do you think is the biggest mystery still hiding in plain sight, right inside our own heads?